Hi everyone. Well, excuse the bedraggled look. I have just completed a commission and oh goodness gracious, it was or is a presentation for a grandfather and great-grandfather for his 90th birthday. This is a magnificent lead crystal bowl and it's, oh goodness me, so beautiful to engrave, so soft, it's like butter. So the client wanted all the grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all their little signatures. Okay, this is not my writing, this is their writing, which is very simple to do. And I will show you. Basically, I instructed them all to use a good dark pen and write pretty clearly, and I manipulated all the signatures and put them into Photoshop and then made sure that they were nice and clear for me to work from and that they were roughly the same sort of area. Okay, impossible to put ED the same as Alexander, obviously, but you'll see that ED is bigger letters than Alexander's letters, and same with OL. However, it's a good balance, if you like. Mixed up all the names as instructed from all the different families and then just randomly engraved them around this bowl. I say randomly, but I made sure that I split this into the 4 families. Then I took a name from each family and grouped them in 3s so that the names were all mixed up and no brothers and sisters are directly next to each other. That was the instruction. And so nice big clear letters, pointless making it very, very tiny, they would just disappear and look a little bit silly. So big clear letters, and then underneath, actually because this was a second from a factory years ago, it had a very deep pontil which hadn't been polished, and also it was off center. So if you can see, this pontil goes all the way out to there and then comes in there. So and it was also still ground. So I managed to do a little bit of polishing with my big polishing wheels. The last 2 stages of pumice. Hope you could hear that. The last 2 stages of pumice on cork and cerium oxide on felt. But I couldn't get right into the middle. It was just barely touching the middle, and so it's not not crystal clear. It's still got a hue, but it's nice and neat. And I thought, I'm not going to start trying to polish it back by hand with a drill with rubbers, because then you start getting streaks. You could spend hours and hours and hours, and I don't have hours and hours and hours just to polish the bottom. And the idea was to simply disguise the flaw in the bottom. So I put random, have I got this upside down? I have got this upside down for you guys. I know you've got it inside out and back to front because obviously it's on the base. So I have engraved it mirror image, and by the way, all hand engraved, because I can't get to the curve is a pain, and also this is not going to take adhesion, because if that's the right word, because it is not smooth, it's slightly ground, and therefore it's not going to stick very well. It probably would have stuck, but then I'm dealing with a severe 2-way curve, and so hand engraving all the lettering. Not my favorite thing, as you know, especially squared off letters. This font is Aldine, and so I did it all by hand, and it is actually fine for the job. Let's turn it around so that you can see. Oh, goodness gracious, that's heavy. From this side, let me stand up so you've got the black background. There we go. That is the very base of the glass. You can see the pontil is quite disguised. I haven't made it symmetrical, all these leaves, the oak leaves, I have made them quite random. Let's get my hand out the way. And then some little acorns. This honestly was so soft to engrave, it was amazing. Okay, right, oh. And so from the front, you see a little bit of leafy effect as you look down, but you see most of it obviously as you get looking from above. Listen to this. I'm going to use something slightly bigger. That is magnificent. Righty-ho. Can you imagine that on the end of a pontil? Oh, the weight. I'm not a glass blower. I tried it once ever briefly for about a minute, and I produced a little blob over the end that, no, not my scene. So I can't begin to imagine how difficult it is to make these magnificent heavy lead crystal bowls. What it says on the base is just getting started. Go for it. There we go. Just getting started. 90th. When you're 90 years old and you have that sort of attitude, because that's on his invitation, that is absolutely brilliant. Speaking of which, let's get started. I'm not going to show you the engraving of the names simply because I just used good quality diamonds and stuck to the same size. Yeah, I chose a size, a sort of a medium size, and very, very carefully went over each name. As simple as that. Obviously I had the names behind the glass so that I could trace them exactly. It's very important when you are copying someone's lettering, their own handwriting, sorry. Right, I have a little green stone in the drill and I'm zooming around doing the basic shape. Just roughly mapping in what I've drawn with a pen, and this is a non-permanent, very fine marker pen that actually wipes off incredibly easy. So I'm just doing this quickly, and as you will notice, of course, I have got the white paper behind so that I can see the marks. So as soon as I have finished going over, take the white paper away. You can see some of the lines are still there. I just did a few extra ones which are not important for the moment. Okay, you can see underneath, well, looking through from the top. Now I'm pointing out where that pontil mark is. It's quite wide. It goes right out into the base. And what I've done as well is I've got that to the back of the bowl. And really, you just do not notice it now at all. I've got the green stone again, and I am just adding in some of those marks I was talking about just now. Not really necessary with the way I'm going to engrave it, but a line out the middle and then a little line towards each sort of blob form of the petal. Petal? Leaf. Oh my goodness. Teeth back in. I've got a small diamond. This is a sintered diamond. Any old little diamond. It's a sort of a medium grit, and I am using good quality medium grit because this is so soft. It's so beautiful. I don't need any sort of rough and tough diamonds for this at all. I have water dripping, of course, which helps the diamond cut neatly, and also, well, general lubrication of the diamond as it's working. I'm doing a ziggy-zaggy sort of movement along each shape, each little part of the leaf shape. Where I drew those lines going outwards to the end of each shape, I'm doing the zigzag line around them. It's very small, but it is just giving you the impression that you see within the oak leaf. It's got a bit of, well, some of them anyway, have got a bit of texture that goes roughly in this direction and shape. I did find it a little bit tricky because of the shape of the bowl. It's really rather enormous, and it's standing right out of my glass holder. Actually, I could have got my bigger one. I sort of stuck to my small glass holder, but I have got an enormous one, which would have really helped, because then I could have had something to lean my wrist on. But as you can see, there's nowhere to lean my wrist, which normally really helps with stability. So my wrist is kind of floating in the air, and that has not made it easy, especially with that lettering that you can see I had to do by hand. Mirror image on the curved surface with nowhere to lean my wrist, and I find, as I said earlier, I find hand engraved lettering particularly difficult, especially as I do most of my lettering with sandblasting. Don't be concerned about the wobble of the bowl. It really didn't bother me. In fact, I've only noticed it while watching the film back. I didn't really notice while I was working on the bowl that it has a slight wobble. Of course, I've zoomed in a fair amount, which does exaggerate all sorts of things. Okay, so I have got, once again, a medium grit diamond burr, and it's quite a size. It's not a small one, and I am creating my little acorn shapes. Use the largest burr you can within a large space. I could have gone even bigger for this one, but the idea is to make this relatively smooth, relatively deep acorn, and then it shows through nicely from the top when you're looking through to the base. Two more little acorns. They're slightly smaller. You'll notice I take the main part of it right further down, and then I go deeper, except that I've got the water dripping in the way. Then I go deeper over the whole thing. So it really does have quite a 3D effect. Now you see me scrubbing away. I'm only engraving very lightly because I'm trying to get rid of any ridges. I really would like it to be relatively smooth. get an idea. Always remember, if you've got lots of rings on and bracelets and whatever jewelry, it's usually a good idea to take it off, but as I've mentioned before, I have never taken my jewelry off, and I know how to handle the glass, but do be careful you don't scratch it with your jewelry. There you see I have got a stone, and I'm just demonstrating what I do with the stone. This is it's not a very rough stone, but I was just smoothing it out a little bit to soften the effect of it. I first did it on a polishing stone, but then also on a burr. But make sure that you're using a burr to do this. That's the brown stone. Make sure you're using a burr that is not often used in the drill, because by doing that you're obviously going to remove parts of the burr as well, the brown burr in other words, change the shape of it slightly, so you don't really want that if you're going to be regularly using it. Now I'm kind of zooming over the whole lot, covering up any blank glass areas, but just generally softening the ridgy effect, the texture effect, just joining it up a little bit more rather than showing very raw brush strokes that I had before. And here is a little Dura white. Remember, these are a fine white corundum stone, a pre-polisher, pretty soft as stones go, and it will be giving us virtually a half tone already. Just smoothing and just adding a little bit of variety of shade before I polish it with a rubber. I am running this video at 150% of normal speed. Just decided to add a bit of stalk to this leaf. It's not attached to anything, it's just randomly lying about. Always be very careful when you're going over lines that you have previously mapped in. Now I'm taking this Dura white over the darker part of the acorn, the main body of it. And this is smoothing out the area a little bit more, getting it ready for the rubber. The curve of the glass is making that look a little bit droopy. Looks a bit like an aubergine, but I promise you, it doesn't look that bad in real life. Just smoothing that again with a little diamond. and a tiny little diamond to add some texture. I could have gone with an even smaller one, to be honest, but I want these things to show up, so you can exaggerate a little bit. I realized afterwards that I hadn't done the little remains of the style, the little pokey bit right at the point. And of course I will add that when I get to work tomorrow. This, of course, is a little rubber, teeny tiny rubber. This is a green one. They come in a variety of colors. They all pretty much do the same thing. I suppose unless you've got a very tiny grey one, that I don't even use those, but those are probably, going by the larger ones, they probably are a bit softer. So I mainly use a green and a brown. Now this is a large soft grey rubber. You can see the effect is nice and shiny already. What I love is the fact that we've got that beautiful gentle texture in the background from the pontil mark that hasn't been polished. So running this rubber over the leaves, just adding a few bits of shading. You make it up as you go along. There are trillions and trillions of reasons why there may be a little bit of darkness on a leaf in a certain position. There's no rules. Just add some variety of shading. If you haven't got a grey rubber, whatever rubber you've got, and if you haven't got a rubber, get yourself a rubber of some description, because they are very useful. I like the grey because it's nice and soft and it goes into the shapes a bit more, whereas something like this is a little rubber disc and it will skip over the upper surface and producing a nice dark polished edge. Because of the shape of it, I'm just running it nicely over the acorn. Now, I contemplated doing a bit of shading around all the leaves and the acorns, where the pontil mark is, with that pale hue. To define them a bit more. I might still do that, but I haven't decided yet. I might leave it as it is, but I might do that. Right, little Dura White. I just wanted to soften parts of these stems for the moment, but then you see I tap my finger. That means the brain is in working order, and the cogs are turning, and out with a little diamond. So I'm bringing the stalk over the top and then underneath. And that being, apart from the fact that it adds a little bit of interest, but I didn't like the way it was not flowing nicely underneath it, so I thought, I'll just put it over the top then. You can see how lovely and shiny those acorns are. There we go. And here is a close-up of the names. There are a few little bubbles in the glass. Of course, this is a second. The client knows that. I've pointed out the flaws to her. There's a particularly large bubbly effect you can see within the base. I love that. Right, well, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Bye for now.